Carried along. Philippians 4:13. It says, I can do all things. How many things? Look at this statement very carefully and tell me if that does not sound like pride. How can a man stand out of the blues and say, I can do all things? Let your mind go wild. You know what all things positively I mean? All things. You know how many things are difficult in this life, in this world? You try healing the sick. You try raising the dead. You try building a house in 3 months. You try securing favor from systems and structures that are antichrist. And here a man stands and does not care what how far your imagination takes you. He dares to tell you, I can do. Please pay attention. My teaching begins now. I can do all things. What statement of pride? I can do all things. And yet you are not omniscient. You are not omnipotent. Are we together now? You are not omnipresent. That means you do not know the future. This was a man who was the arch enemy of everyone who was antichrist. If they saw Paul, remember once upon a time the people came together and vowed not to eat till Paul died. I don't know what they did later on, because Paul lived a long time. And yet a man stands in the midst of turbulence, antagonism, and says, I can do all things. If you make such a statement in our world today, your first enemies will be your audience there. Did you say all things? Give me all the qualifications so that I can use to vet your seriousness. Did you school in Yale or Harvard, number one? Are you connected to the presidents of nations? And then you say it does not matter, I can do all things. Look at this statement very carefully, because this is going to be the basis of my challenging you tonight. How can a man stand and say, I can do all things? How many things can you do? No. Before my teaching, how many things can you do? I can do all things. Imagine what will happen to you if you believed this. I can do all things. He's not talking of all negative things. He's not talking of the concept of all things. Is all things that are in line with my purpose, all things that are in line as far as God's expectation for me is concerned. You get the idea now? I can do all things. That means you have taken away that limitation from your life, that in your mind and in your life the only limitation to your advancement is the voice of God and process. But as far as mountains are concerned, you have sustained through this spiritual intelligence the ability to not even recognize their presence. I can do all things. Imagine that someone begins to make that statement as a tenant. I can do all things. As a man of God, you've not even started ministry. I can do all things. And you look at the map of the world, you are holding it in your hands, and you look at, you don't even have an international passport, and you can dare say, I can do all things. I can do all things. But he does not stop there. The next statement turns what would have been a statement of pride and arrogance into a message for anybody who intends to go far. He says, I can do all things through Christ, which not who informs, not just who guides, who strengtheneth me, is the Greek word energes, a strengthening. It says, finally, brethren, Ephesians 6 and verse 10, be strong in the Lord. It says, and in the power of his might. In fact, the amplified rendition, please give it to us. Ephesians 6 and verse 10. It says, draw your power through your union with him. Finally, brethren, he says, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Can we have the amplified of this? Is God speaking to someone already? It says, be strong in the Lord, be empowered through your union with him. Draw your strength from him, that strength which his boundless might provides. I'm using the energy, but it does not come from me. He says, I can do all things. You need to get a powerful revelation tonight. I can do all things. So when you watch a clock moving round non-stop, you would think it's because the mechanical system is so powerful. But behind that beauty, there are usually 2 or 3 or 4 batteries. Is that true? The power that drives that clock is not just in the mechanical system, but that there is a battery. Even if the clock is new, without that battery, it does not move. So he's saying here that I can, when you see the results, you are only seeing the hand of the clock go round and it does not seem to stop. By what energy do you keep going round? He says, I can do all things. Then he says, let me confess, through Christ. Through Christ that strengtheneth me. Through Christ that strengtheneth me.